Starting.
Right, go ahead and take a seat, Lisa. Hi, thank you for joining me.
You should get another color.
We don't have to worry about the highlighters yet, okay? So you don't have to worry about your highlighters. Go ahead and give me your index cards back. Alrighty, scholars. So, I know that in reading class you've learned about fiction, nonfiction, text. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Alright, so I know that you're usually used to reading fiction texts, and usually, like, we see nonfiction texts.
For science, we do.
Science, yeah, social
Science,
studies.
yeah, sorry.
Sometimes reading.
And sometimes it shows pieces articles.
Yeah,
Yeah,
these
thank you.
readings are really heavy, right? So it's useful to have strategies and tools to help you read these a lot easier, so that it won't feel like you're taking in all of this information. Instead, we want to make sure that we can just pick out all the important details, right? So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to be teaching you a strategy, how to do that. And the strategy is called using magnet summaries. I'm going to show you, before we even look at our reading, I'm going to show you an example of a magnet summary. So this is a text that was pulled out of a science book. It's about glaciers. If you want, you can pass it
Oh,
around.
I think we read this one.
Yeah, you might recognize it. So it's about glaciers. What was done, the text was broken up into sections. So you have your introduction, then you have the first part, which is called the kinds of glaciers. Then you move on to your second part, labeled ice ages. Then you move on to how glaciers form and move, and so on. So what happens in this case would be that everybody would be assigned a little section to read on their own. And then based on the section that they read, they would make a magnet summary. So for example, this is based off of the first part, kinds of glaciers, right? My magnet word would be glaciers, because that's the topic of what I'm talking about. Now in the four corners, I chose 4 keywords. Bless you, Alexis.
Thank you.
I chose 4 keywords that I found in this little section that I read. So the 4 keywords were valley glacier, continental glacier, massive ice, and move slowly. So those are like the 4 keywords that I took from this small section.
The ones that are bold.
Not necessarily. Some of them are the ones that are bold. Like move slowly wasn't bolded, but I thought that that was really important
Keywords.
as far as like what they were saying. Yeah. Yes. All right. So that's just an example of what we're going to do. Then in the back, all I did in 2 sentences was summarize the little text that I read using the 4 keywords. So I'm going to go and read that to you. Glaciers are large masses of ice that move slowly over land. Those are continental glaciers. Or in between mountain valleys, and those are valley glaciers. They can spread for millions of kilometers and can be 2 kilometers thick. So those are the important details that I chose out of the small text that I wrote. Did you have a question, Ashley?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Do we have to copy it like straight out of the text?
No. So when you summarize, you want to make sure, that's a really good question, that you're not copying it word for word. Because if you're copying it word for word, that means that we have to use quotations, right?
And a citation.
Yes, and a citation. In this case, we're summarizing, so make sure that you use your own words, okay? And just like I said, I just used like a sentence or 2, right? Because this was a pretty small section. Okay. Any questions so far? This is just an example of a past one that we did. Okay.
Hey, what is this?
Yes, Alexis.
Okay, are we sharing it to the class? Like to the students?
No, this is just between us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty. So now we're going to look at the actual text that we're going to read today. What we're going to do first is we're going to go through a chapter walk. Have anybody done a chapter walk before? Like before you start?
Or
Like,
you just skim the thing.
yeah. What else
Oh,
do
yeah.
you do other than skimming? And this usually happens like when you start a new lesson, like for science, or
You
for social
read the
studies.
title and you predict what's gonna happen.
We're looking at titles. We're looking at pictures. Just
Oh, that's what I
the
do when I
titles.
look at a new book.
Yes, we're skimming. We're just looking up the pictures. Make sure that you're reading the captions so that you actually know what the picture is about.
I just read the back.
We're looking at some of the subheadings. Yeah, we all have the same picture.
You like the
We all- We all have the same subheadings.
They ate it? Is this like a fish?
That's a lead pencil.
It might be. Do you want to read the caption?
Where lead pencil? Where? Oh, it's a zooplankton.
So right now you're just interacting with the text. You're familiarizing yourself with it.
That is a
Oh, look, the toilet paper roll.
So Sadie, it looks like this caption says, this image shows zooplankton that has swallowed polyesterine beads, and the beads glow green. Yes.
Which one?
You don't have to know exactly what that means. We're just previewing the text right
You know
now.
what I mean? Like,
Science
you know those
147.
little glow in the dark beads?
Yeah.
It swallowed them and now it's inside.
So they killed him? Because it's dead? So they just opened inside him and they saw what's...
They probably use some type of like,
Technology.
yeah, some technology to kind of like see through.
But
Like,
zooplankton.
it's some type of X-ray.
But it looks dead.
Oh, look.
And if you
That's a
notice in the
fish.
back,
In the-
Easy Pieces,
Yeah.
in the back of the text, there's actually a glossary. So we're gonna encounter a lot of big words, just like polychlorinated biphenylates, right? So we're gonna look at a few of those words before we even go into the reading. But so far, what do you think the text is gonna be about? Just from what you're looking at. Okay, so fish.
About
Okay.
trash.
Plastic, yeah.
Fish, trash,
Big
electricity.
Literally.
Like sea animals are dying?
Or
How
pollution.
animals are dying. Okay.
What's the difference between littering and
Pollution. Pollution is like when
It's like littering is pollution because when you litter you do pollution.
Yeah. So the more you litter, the more likely that like pollution will occur.
pollution
yeah, like
is
how
like
you're looking
carbon
at those
dioxide in the air.
Already,
Pollution is bad.
it's very bad. Yeah, if you can just enter silently, that would be awesome. Thank you. Okay. So, can anybody tell me, as far as the pictures go?
Oh,
What do
it
you
shows
think?
how pollution affects the animals.
In the
How it
ocean?
looks after we pollute and like I guess this is
Yeah.
like a diagram of the
It
pollution.
If
just shows-
everybody can turn to this page really quickly, I just want to read the caption to this picture before we even go into our reading.
Can I read it?
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you for participating. So go ahead, read it.
Scientists found 47 pieces of plastic in the stomach of this triggerfish. It has been caught near the surface in the North Atlantic subtropical year.
Thank you. So, you see that little dish that he's carrying and all those little pieces of plastic?
They look like those confetti.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what
they
I was
also,
gonna say.
they're so small, right? They're broken down into such small pieces. That was found in the fish. So we're gonna
So it
go
ate it?
we're gonna go into this a little bit more. So we're gonna start
What's that?
actually reading our text.
They were gonna cook them. Look at, they put it on the chopping board.
All right. So, like I said, team, today we're going to read this article by breaking it apart. And we're each going to make our own magnet summaries so that in the end, we're going to, in order, read our magnet summaries so that we can get a full summary of what the whole article was about without each of us individually like reading all of it. Because as you can see, the text is a little bit long. Yeah, the text is kind of long. So we're going to work as a team to break it down and just summarize it. Okay?
So just one page summarized.
Yes.
The one whole page for each?
I'm going to break it down in just a second. I just want to read the introduction with you so that we can then go into the text. All right. So, Sunny, can you read the title for us, please?
Tiny plastic big problem. Our environmental.
Yeah. Go ahead and then go ahead and read what.
Scientists find that tiny pieces of plastic travel great distances, threatening the ocean ecosystem.
Would you mind reading the caption, please, Ashley?
What's that?
The caption.
Pieces of plastic flow here in ocean water. This pollution is a growing problem and not just because it's ugly. Plastic can kill many kinds of marine life.
So already our caption in the beginning is already kind of telling us that what we said was true, right? It is going to be about trash. It is going to be about fish. It is going to be about the harming of animals in the ocean. Okay. Alexis, go ahead and read that first paragraph. So we're going to read the introduction together, and then we're gonna break up the article so that we can each summarize our little piece. Okay? All right, Alexis.
Plastic bottles lining the gutter. Bags tangled in branches. Food wrappers gulping across the ground on a windy day. Although such examples of litter easily come to mind, they only hint at serious and growing problems of plastic pollution, a problem most hidden from news.
Thank you, Alexis. The problem with plastics is they do not easily degrade.
I know this. A glass takes about. What did she say? The plastic takes about like 250 years.
Sadi, thank you for bringing that up. Go ahead and you can pick up your highlighters. Make sure that you're highlighting any important piece of information. It's always good to annotate whatever you're reading, just so that you can go back and look at the important details. So they may break down, but only into smaller pieces. The smaller those pieces get, the more places they can go. Ita, would you mind reading that next paragraph?
Many pieces wind up at sea. Tiny bits of plastic float throughout the world's oceans. They wash up on remote islands. They collect in sea ice thousands of kilometers miles from the nearest city. They even melt with rock, creating a whole new material. Some scientists have proposed calling it plasticlomer.
Really close. Plastic glomerate.
Plasticlomer.
You pretty much got it spot on. Exactly how much plastic is out there remains a mystery. Scientists are hard at work trying to find out. So far, though, as experts haven't found as much plastic floating in the oceans as they expected. All that missing plastic is worrisome, because the smaller a plastic bit becomes, the more likely it will make its way into a living thing, just like we saw that fish, whether a tiny plankton or an enormous whale. And that may spell some real trouble. Like Kasari has a lot of things she's highlighted, so does Alexis. Let's quickly look at the back of our summary before we start writing our first magnet summary. I'm sorry, the back of the article. So I just want to look at a few words before we start actually going into like the meat of this.
Where's that?
Oh, that's just an extra crossword puzzle that you can do.
What is?
Okay. So we have the word degrade, and we know what that. Do we know what that?
Yeah, to break down.
To break down. So to break down a compound into smaller components. We also have.
Whoa, that's a big word.
DDT.
No, this one short for Zawa.
We also have plastic glomerate, and that's actually on the second page. That is a name some scientists have proposed for a category of rock that's created when plastic melts and fuses with chunks of stone, shell, and other materials to create a long-lasting record of human pollution. So it's pretty much like plastic combined with rock and then becoming one.
My highlighter doesn't work.
Oh no, is it running low? Here you go. You can use this one.
Yay.
3 words down is polyethylene, and I hope I said that correctly.
Yeah.
It's a plastic made from chemicals that have been refined or produced from crude oil or natural gas. And this is the most common plastic in the world. It's flexible and tough.
Which one?
Polyethylene. Polyethylene. Okay. Alright. So before we go into our individual magnet summaries, I actually want to do one together. Okay? So go ahead and take one index card. Whatever. Oh. I don't think there's anything wrong with Alexis having pink.
Because you're memory pink.
Exactly. And colors don't have a gender. Right?
They-
Even though people put genders to them. But it's not true. Okay.
They're unisexual.
Especially like blue, green, and red.
So. Where did the rest go? magnet word is going to be pollution. So this is the word that we're going to write right in the middle. As we're reading, make sure that you're looking for just keywords. You're just looking for keywords. And these keywords, like I showed you earlier, are going to go in these 4 corners. Oh, that's fine. You're fine. So these 4 words are going to go where, Alexis? These 4 keywords that we're looking for? The 4 corners, yes. So this is the one that we're going to do together, okay? So, we're going to go ahead and just read in the circle, okay? So I'm going to start.
Where are we starting? We're here.
So we're looking at the first page. I want you to actually take your highlighter and I want you to highlight the subheadings. So we're going to highlight into the soup. This is us breaking apart the article. We're going to highlight into the soup. That's one section.
We could break metal. We could break down.
Yeah, metal can break down.
You could only melt it, can you?
You can melt it, but when it's exposed to too much like oxygen and air, it becomes rust and it can break down. I believe.
Oh yeah, that happened to my dog's leash. It had metal on it, and it got one because of rust.
So we have into the soup, millions of tons gone missing. This is us breaking down the article. What do you think we're going to highlight next, Ashley?
Entering the food web.
That's the next section. This is us breaking everything down. Alexis, what do you think the next section is going to be?
In melting? Communication?
An accumulating problem.
Oh.
So a growing problem. And then last but not least, Itza, what would be our last section?
Managing microplastics.
Managing microplastics. Okay. So we're going to read the first piece of our article together again, but we're actually going to make a little magnet summary for it, okay?
Yay.
So, I'm going to begin reading, and then we're going to go clockwise. We're just going to read each paragraph each. Alright, so you should all be tracking your articles right now. If it helps you, you can have a highlighter in your hand so that you can highlight things. Okay, so plastics are used to make countless everyday products, from bottles to auto bumpers, from homework folders to flower pots. In 2012, 288 million metric tons of plastic were produced worldwide. Since then, the amount has only grown.
Just how much of that plastic winds up in the oceans remains unknown. Scientists estimate about 10% does. And one recent study suggests as much as 8 million metric tons of plastic wound up in the ocean in 2010 alone. How much plastic is that? 5 plastic bags filled with plastic for every foot of coastline in the world, says Gina Jambeck. She's the researcher from the University of Georgia in Athens who led the new study. It was published February 13 in Science. Those millions of tons, as much as 80%, had been used on land. So how did it get into the water? Storms washed some plastic litter into streams and rivers. These waterways then carried much of the trash downstream to the sea.
The other 20% of plastic goes into the water directly. This debris includes fishing lines and nets and other lost at sea dumped overboard for abandoned when they became damaged or no longer needed.
And before you read, Alexis, I like how everyone is highlighting important details. Make sure that we're also underlining, if it helps you, maybe vocab words that we're going to end up writing on our index card.
Once in the water, now plastic behaves the same way. in the most common plastic by biolactic.
You want to try one more time, Alexis? It is a tough word. I had trouble reading it.
Bilo
Poly.
poly at like interation.
So it would be polyethylene terephthalate. And good news for us, we don't have to use that big word. What can we use instead?
Poly.
Or PET.
Or PET or PET. That's the acronym for that word since it's so complicated to say.
Oh, I think I PET.
So the most common plastic, that's where you left off.
The most common plastic bilo
And then it would be, you can skip to that.
or PET is used to make water and soft drink bottles. Unless filled air, these bottles sink. Can I read the rest?
Yes.
This makes PET pollution tough to track. This is especially true if the bottles have drifted to ocean depths. Most of other types of plastics, however, bob along the surface. It's these types used in milk cartons, milk jugs, during bottles, and styrofoam that made up the abundance of floating plastic trash.
Thank you, Alexis. Abundant indeed. Evidence of plastic pollution abounds across the world's oceans. Carried by circular currents called gyres, discarded pieces of plastic can travel thousands of kilometers. In some areas, they amass in huge quantities. Reports on the largest of these, the Pacific Garbage Patch, are easy to find online. Some sites reported to be twice the size of Texas, but defining the actual area is a difficult task. That's because the garbage patch is actually quite patchy. It shifts around. And most of the plastic in that area is so tiny that it's hard to see. So now go ahead and take a few seconds and underline some keywords that you would like to add to your four corners. You'll go home in like 4 minutes, okay? Just go ahead and look for some keywords that you would like to add to the corners, okay? I already told you that. And we're just looking for words, for vocabulary words.
Can it also be
I
like
don't have
in
a pen. You actually could.
Weren't there a lot?
Yeah, we have it. That's okay.
more places to go? Do we underline or?
Yes, go ahead and underline the vocab words that you think we should add to our four corners.
Wait, they only have to be one word.
Yeah, or they can be like a few words, just like I had in this
Short
example.
ones?
I had massive ice, so technically it's not just one word; it was 3 words.
I got 3.
Okay.
I can't find the last one.
Once you have at least 2 words, you can go ahead and track me so that I know that you're ready to move on. You can still tracking me so I know that you're ready to move on. Daddy's tracking me. Alright, everyone's tracking me so I know we're ready to move on. So, what are some words that we want to add? Daddy?
Growing problem. Is everything a growing problem?
Growing problem? Okay. I'm going to write it's a growing problem. Any other words? Alexis?
Only grow, like the plastic has only grown, not shutting down.
Oh, it's only growing? Okay.
Keeps growing.
And you know, I actually think that's really related to Sarai's, so I think you both are on the same page, growing problem. Because I think that's exactly what you're talking about, because it is a growing problem and it's something that That's only accumulating. So I like that, Alexis. It's up.
Pet.
PET, right? You know, PET is the most common plastic that you would find in the ocean. I actually want to add one myself. I'd like to add gyres.
Wait, what is that?
So it should be in your text. It's actually on the other page. Yeah, so it's gonna be right here. Yeah, and that's how the trash actually is able to move along the ocean. Did you have an answer?
No plastic.
Plastic, yeah, that's perfect. Now what we're going to do, we're going to make a summary using all those 4 words. And then remember, the summary can be like a sentence or 2.
Doesn't PET mean the same thing as plastic?
Um,
In the ocean?
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. Plastic and PET are technically the same thing, but this is the most common type of plastic, right?
I know,
So
I
yeah,
think
actually you're right. If we actually wanted to make this stronger, we actually could have actually combined these and thought of like a 4th word.
I'm gonna say it.
You already have a sentence? Okay. So what do you think our first sentence would look like?
The growing problem is caused by pollution of plastics or PET.
The growing problem is caused, and I like how it's actually just went ahead and used 3 of our vocab words, right? The growing problem is caused by, that's what you said, right, Lisa?
Plastics. Including PET.
Including PET. So now, we use growing problem, we use plastic, and we use PET. Now we have to use gyres. Remember that gyres, Aleka Sadi is going back into her text so that she can get some context on that. She's actually looking into her glossary. Gyres are circular currents that occur in the water that allow for the plastics to pretty much migrate and go to different places. Yes. So it's did you want to read the definition to us?
Ocean. A ring-like system of ocean currents that rotate clockwise in the northern hemisphere and counterclockwise in the southern hemisphere. Many of the biggest, most persistent gyres have become collection sites of floating non-linear trash, especially plastic.
So they become the collection site. So think about a gyre as like a licuadora, right? It's like this motion and everything just kind of stays in there, right? That's what happens with the plastic. So how do you think we can create that into a sentence? That's where all the trash is being accumulated, right?
I have one word that you can add it to.
Okay.
Or ended up in gyres, like
Okay.
including PET or
Okay, so
Ended
I
up
like
in
so we can end our sentence like that, right? End up in gyres, right? So maybe we can say most of the plastic found in oceans. And how do you want to end it, Alexis? Ends up in gyres, right? Ends up in gyres. So there. We did our first one together because I wanted to actually show you exactly how you would do it. And now we're gonna go and split the reading so that we can make our summaries individually. You can go ahead and go home. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm definitely going to be here. Alexis, your desk should be outside. I'm definitely going to be here so that I can help you. So let's go ahead and split this. Who would like to be in charge of millions